Welcome back to the Perceived Exertion podcast. Happy New Year. I wish you all the best for 2022. As we've now completed Series 1 of the podcast, I thought it'd be good to pull together a compilation of the best bits from Season 1. Hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Season 2 is starting to be recorded and will be available soon. I wish you all the best. Thank you. Bye. Do you have any tips on essential equipment? I mean, I think as triathletes we collect lots of gadgets and lots of pieces of equipment, and some of them are necessary, some of them are not necessary at all. But we reassure ourselves that it's an investment we should make. Is there any essential equipment that you would you could highlight that you think is kind of essential?
I don't think there's anything specific outside of the normal essentials of a wetsuit, swimming goggles, some sort of device to track your workout, your bikes and what have you. What I would say is that I see there's a lot of pressure out there to have the latest gadget, the newest equipment, the best bike. Everybody has their own budget, and I'd say stick within your budget. If you need to buy something, buy it within your budget, and don't feel pressured. When I bought my first bike, it cost me £250 from Halford. It was a road bike, and I completed quite a few triathlons on it, and I had a good time. As you know, I've upgraded now, but that's because that's come because of my desire to wear Live gear and ride Live gear. It's a brand that I love. But in terms of a specific gadget, maybe your mindset. Make sure your mindset's so it's not.
I was going to say it's really important that kind of that element of kind of questioning why you need something. I think we've all been there with regards to bikes, and I've still got the same bike that I started my triathlon journey on. I was considering an upgrade this year, but I've decided just to stick with it because it's not going to give me any gains. It's probably just a mental thing in terms of thinking that I need a new piece of equipment. But that's a really good point. And I think anyone coming into the sport, triathlon is an expensive sport if you let it. It doesn't have to be. If you're doing a sprint distance, you can get around on a road bike. There's no problem with that. But there are a lot of things on social media that kind of inspire people into making purchases perhaps they don't need. There's the Garmin watches or the data that you need, but some would question some of that is necessary at first. It's really about kind of making sure that you've got the essentials to get you through the sport.
Yeah, I mean that's how I started. I got the basics of the basics, and it was enough. In fact, I've still got the wetsuit that I bought 4 years ago, and it's my only wetsuit. I've never upgraded, and I see a lot out there that I think, oh, that'd be a nice wetsuit, that'd be nice, but this one does the job, and maybe it's my lucky wetsuit. I don't know.
I'm exactly the same. I've got the same wetsuit from when I started. My first triathlon, and I'd like to get a new wetsuit, but not for any specific reason. I don't think I'm going to get any benefit from it.
Yeah, I would say if anybody can suggest a decent pair of open water swimming goggles that don't steam up, even if you've tried products to help not steam up, if anybody's found anything that think actually these are the best ones I've ever had, then please share, because me and swimming goggles, I've tried lots of techniques to help them not steam up, but once they steam up, they've steamed up.
Yeah, I'm a breakfast radio announcer here in WA, work for Triple M, hence the branding in the background. So I work mornings, which is great. Start quite early, usually in the studio about 4 a.m. But the benefit of that is obviously I get to knock off quite early, and then obviously get lots of time with the family. So I got a wife and a lovely daughter who's just turned 5 the other month. So I got lots of opportunities to spend the afternoons with them, and then obviously lots of time for running as well. But previous to lockdown, I've always played basketball. I love basketball. It's like one of my true passions. I don't watch any other sport other than basketball, so I'm a little bit obsessed. So I obviously had a baseline fitness, but during my basketball sort of amateur playing career, I've done my ACL, I've done my meniscus, so I've had a few injuries, fair to say, along the way, and then going to university, discovered beer and cheese and put on a few kilograms. And then once you have a family, life gets pretty busy having a young family, and we had a couple of businesses as well on the side. So I just never had time for fitness in the end. Suddenly, I was staring down the barrel of, mid-30s, pretty overweight, pretty unhappy with my body, and realizing that I really needed to make a change. So, COVID just gave me that spark to sort of get off my ass and do something. And because we had a lot of extra spare time due to COVID, like everyone was working from home, I was basically one of the few people that were coming into the studio. So the office was free all the time. I just found that it was a really nice way to sort of get out and sort of end the day when you couldn't go to the gym. So I think, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but I came to run in. I'd never pick up the shoes and go for a run at all. It just wasn't something I did. I'd only ever do it if we were playing basketball. But when I first began the 5Ks, I was really struggling. I was doing it in 33 minutes and struggling to get through it, to be honest. And just the other weekend, I did a PB and I finally cracked into that 21-minute mark. So, it's been a big progression over the last, 450, 500 days.
What did your family think of your achievement in terms of running 5K a day?
Nuts. No. Look, my wife, she knows what I'm like. I'm an all or nothing kind of guy. And, I've given up alcohol in the last 2 years. This year, I haven't had any coffee. And every year I sort of do a crazy New Year's resolution. Like I've gone without chocolate, gone without lollies, gone without soft drink and Coca-Cola and those kind of things for a year, gone without takeout for a year. So when I commit to something, I always do it. And the benefit, I think, of being on radio as well, because I started talking about this 5K a day, thinking I was doing it for the month. Once you get it out there, the listeners start getting involved and they go, you can't stop now. You've got to keep going. So, I'm kind of stuck with it, but now I love it, so it's fine.
Yeah, I did. So I did my first Ironman in Cozumel, Mexico, and I woke up totally ready. I was in the best mood. Nutrition was on point. I was actually hungry that morning. It was fine. And this was in Mexico. I lived about a mile from transition area. So you go to transition area first, and then you get on a shuttle, and they shuttle you up to swim because it's a point to point. So they'll shuttle you up to the swim start, but you check on your bike that morning. I had so many tasks to do. I had to get my numbers on my arm. I had shoes that I had to put with my bike. I had these cooling sleeves that I had with my arms, for my arms to put on the bike. And I am right outside of transition area across the street. I have a headlamp on. I think it's 5 o'clock in the morning, so it's dark. And I hear a noise behind me and I am on the ground. And I had gotten hit by a motorcycle who drove up behind me, who was on the shoulder lane, and it was right outside of transition area. So I was actually wearing a backpack on this arm. So the loose strap from that backpack caught the handlebars. So I spun and went down, hit my head on the ground and was dragged. So this was before my first Ironman, all the training I had done, and I was devastated. I didn't know what was going on. I was completely in shock. My mind, my body was completely in shock. And I still had a number of things to complete that morning. So It was really tough. He took off. The guy who hit me took off. And I just pretty much cried for the next hour and a half while still trying to calm myself down, trying to decide whether I was okay or not. I could not find paramedics. I was told they'd be at the swim start. I couldn't find them. I don't know if that's because they weren't there or just because I was a mess. But I ended up saying I'm just going to take the day really easy, really slowly. And I got in the water and I started my Ironman. And then about 10 minutes into the swim, a man next to me had a cardiac arrest. And we had to wave. Me and another girl and probably a couple other people waved rescue boats over. And it was just, that's how I started the day. So it was really intense, but I had to understand that both of these incidences were rare in their own. And this was not going to dictate the rest of my day.
Are there any common mistakes that let's not use the word mistake. Are there common learnings from triathletes that you find, someone that comes in and says, oh, I've got, I've done this and this and this, and that really isn't what they should be doing? Are there any common areas that you find from triathletes?
So I suppose linking in with, I think what we touched based on about 15 minutes ago, there are common weak areas: gluteals, core muscles, the muscles that maneuver your shoulder blades through certain ranges of motion. And that's really like not rocket science in terms of people hearing that. It's a bit like people often who are overweight. They know how to eat healthily, but they don't actually know practically how to put the wheels into motion. So typical like kind of challenges I think that people come against when they're trying to improve those things is, first of all, in terms of exercise selection, they'll tend to gravitate towards exercises which are either too complex for them. So because they haven't got the technical ability and the strength to be able to do them, they end up really going nowhere with the exercise, and it just becomes frustrating. So, examples would be people gravitate usually a lot too early to things like single leg squats, those type of movements that are actually pretty damn complex. And actually for a lot of people don't actually work that great. For me, it's not a great exercise for me. I don't use it all, but for some people it works brilliantly. The other thing as well is realizing that even though when we're using strength training, what you're wanting to do is use exercises that are working multiple muscles and joints that matter for triathlon at once. I describe it a bit like if you imagine when you run and you cycle, your hip and your knee go through certain ranges of motion. They flex and extend, flex and extend, flex and extend, a bit like a piston in a car. And then there are dozens of muscles that will help create that movement. And it's a bit like a band. So if you had a band and you had like a drummer, a keyboard player, a singer, a bass, guitar, individually, you could train those to be absolutely brilliantly. So your drummer could go and practice on his own and your keyboard player. But if they haven't collectively learned how to operate together as a band, the music's going to be absolutely awful. It's the same with your body. Isolation exercises to isolate your glutes and isolate your core, they can have their place. We do use them. But you've got to use strength training at the same time where you're using the key muscles through the key ranges of motion that the joints go collectively to have that orchestral effect. We call it intermuscular coordination. It's the ability to coordinate all these things at once. And usually that isn't done. And consequently, there's very little transfer of the strength work in the gym actually out onto the road or out into the water as well. And then probably final two things I reckon, I've mentioned this a lot, but I think it needs reinforcing, like rest periods. If your heart rate is in, your average heart rate during strength training should be really quite low, zone 1, zone 2. It should be really relatively low. It will peak at certain points. So like if you've done particularly certain exercises where you're using lots of big muscles at once, particularly if it's a single leg exercise, you're having to brace really hard through your abdomen to support the weight. You'll get off that and you'll be like, you'll have a real blow on, but you'll pass quickly. So using rest periods is absolutely pivotal. Now, what that doesn't mean is that you just stand around and twiddle your thumbs for 2 minutes, because that's just pretty boring. when you structure strength training properly, you can put in other exercises and mobility work that's lower in intensity or using other parts of the body that will allow the area of your body that you've just trained to recover suitably for when you do the next set. And that's kind of like the art of putting together what's there, makes it time efficient as well at the same time. But the one thing that you typically see is with any type of triathlete or endurance folk, and it makes sense because of what you expect, they'll just blast through exercises just like you blast through an interval session or training session. Again, we're not training your cardiovascular system, your metabolic system. We're training what we call your neuromuscular system, the ability, nerves to turn on muscles. If you look at 50, 60 years of science, hundreds of years of coaching experience, if you want to improve that, you need recovery, because then you're either going to move your body quicker or you're going to move a bigger weight, which means your body's going to adapt better for that. The final thing then will be, again, reinforcing technique. It sounds so simple, but to get this reinforced in a triathlete's mind it's a process. Very little at the time will they just be like, oh yeah, I understand that now, and now I'm technically perfect. It takes real attention and focus on being able to really understand what it means to concentrate on the right things technically, but still work hard. And again, that's where understanding, a bit like with swimming, we're getting swim coaching. For me, it enables me to not have to worry about stuff that doesn't matter, but focus on one or two key things that will really help. Same as strength work. Through understanding the right cues, you can focus on one or two things that will enable everything to fall into place without your head just being full of information and then you're not knowing really what to do. So we could go on, but there, I think, kind of 3 or 4 things that if you can solve and get your head around as a triathlete, you'll make immense positive change with what you're doing, and that's going to impact your swim, bike and run much more.
So you've come a long way in terms of your fitness. Do you want to just talk about kind of your weight loss and your change of lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, so about 4 years ago, I was 8.5 stone heavier, really. And I think I just realized that it just couldn't continue anymore. And so I started just walking a mile a day to the end of my estate and back, really, and started to get a bit faster at it, you know, as time went on. And that's when I then started to think, okay, I can maybe do something a bit more than this. And the weight started to come off, and then I started to do other things. I didn't really do the cycling aspect until actually the triathlon. I got my first road bike, which wasn't the best bike, but it still did the job. And yeah, swimming has always been something I've done. I actually used to be a synchronized swimmer at school. Yeah, Roundup.
Very similar to swimming in a lake.
Absolutely. Right. And then just took it from there, really. And once I'd done one, thought, right, I need to beat that time. I need to try and do this a bit better. And then just enjoyed it ever since, really.
That's good. And was there anything that kind of triggered your change of lifestyle?
Honestly, I don't remember. It all feels such a blur now when I think back about it, and I don't recognise myself as the person that I was before. I can't really pinpoint it. I didn't wake up one morning and think, right, this is it. This is the start of me making this journey. I'd done so many fad diets and things like that before, and it just never worked. And so I don't honestly know what triggered it and what changed it. But it was actually a change of lifestyle, not just the diet and everything else. It's just everything, and it has to be a way of life, and that's what it is now.
Was the difference a change in your eating habits, or was it mainly fitness and getting into exercise?
Well, I have to say, I'm a big carb lover. I still am now. But
that's good. That's good for endurance events.
Absolutely, yeah. But I can absolutely love it this time now. Whereas before, I did very much where I was very protein focused, reduced carbs, and it did work for me because it meant everything came off quite quickly. And then obviously you just have to tweak your diet depending on what you're doing. And obviously now I've learned a lot more about food as I've got along with my journey, and now realise the importance of the carbs. And it's completely different.
Yeah, I think I'm very similar to you. I've got a similar sort of background to you. I lost a lot of weight after going through years of trying different diets that just didn't work. and in particular one diet that I won't mention the name of, but almost killed me in terms of ended up with pancreatitis. So yeah, I mean, it's a for me there was a triggering event, which was meeting someone at a gym, a personal trainer who just kind of made me accountable. Do you find accountability key? And is that perhaps why you do triathlon, which is you've got a goal and you've got an event that you have to then train for?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think if you've not got a goal set for your next one, I think you can easily lose focus. And I think that's probably why all the time my friends will be saying, "Oh, what are you doing now? You know, calm down. You've done enough." And actually, no, you need that sort of focus and that sort of excitement really for the next event to keep you going. And I have to say, since having my running Instagram account as well, that's made a massive difference to keeping me motivated, seeing everyone every day still training, and and it makes you go, oh, actually I can squeeze in a quick session, even when you're feeling a bit lazy. I still have the lazy days, definitely, but it's still nice to see that motivation, and it does make you think, no, I can just get out and do even 20 minutes quick hills session or anything really, and it does make a difference, doesn't it?
So we haven't spoken prior to a couple of weeks ago when we had a catch up, and I've followed your journey for at least 4 years on Instagram. I would say you were probably the most experienced middle distance and long distance triathlete that I know through social media, and it's been great following your journey, actually, certainly over the last 4 years. And I know you've done it for longer than that, but are there how many half Ironman and Ironmans have you done now?
So I've done 30. So technically I've done 30, but I DNF'd one. So I've completed 29 and DNF'd one half Ironman. And then I've done 12 Ironmans. Technically 15, but I DNF'd 3. So I only completed 12. So those are the numbers, I guess.
So what keeps you motivated? What keeps you coming back for more?
It's funny. I completely skipped the short course, right? Like I dabbled in some few here and there, but I just went straight into the long course because to me, that always represented the challenge of doing an Ironman and a half Ironman was always that big ideal or a challenge. And to this day, I still find it challenging, and I really enjoy the distance because I like to combine my competitive side with traveling. And if I'm going to travel, I'm not across the world. I'm not going to do a sprint distance, right, and have it done in like an hour or so. So I guess in a way you're maximizing your vacation time by racing a half Ironman or Ironman. So,
what do you prefer, half or full distance?
I prefer half. I still haven't cracked the Ironman code. Like I'm still finding that hard. I'm finding it the hard way about the Ironman. I had some hints here or there with the last few Ironmans where I'm starting to get it, but I'm still struggling with that distance. So,
what's the hardest part? Do you think? What's the thing that you struggle with?
In terms of Ironman, or
in terms of Ironman, yeah.
I think for me, it has always been the pacing, and because I come from that, me being an army man and martial arts, you're always on the attack, right? So like you just go hard on the swim, hard on the bike, and hard on the run. You just can't do that for an Ironman because Ironman, as I found out, for most age groupers, it's a zone 2, zone 3 sport, right? You might surge here or there on the bike or the run, but you're never going to be in zone 5 for the entire race. It's a management of your energy, right? So for me, the first 6, 7 Ironmans was a struggle because I never understood that concept of pacing and conserving your energy to throughout the race, because really for an age grouper like us, it's really about the run. and pretty much the 30K in, that's pretty much still an extended warm up. And then the last K is really the race, right? For us age groupers. So it's been an interesting journey with lots of failures and hard fought lessons.
Just in terms of the nutrition for post training or post race, how important is it to take on carbohydrate and protein as soon as you finish that training or that race? Is there really a kind of golden period of time that you need to do that?
So I think people kind of think of this as something that is really essential, and people kind of race after race to get all their fuel in and nutrition in straight after. It's not 100% necessary, but the general rule is kind of have your protein within 2 hours. Ideally closer, better, but if not, no worries. I haven't seen many studies which have kind of tested this, but as long as you have kind of, it's advised, I think it's 0.3 grams per kilo of body weight of protein within 2 hours after a race. That should then be more than enough. So it's no rush. Like, it'd be great if you had a protein shake and just take it when you feel ready, really, after a race. And then carbohydrates, again, it's recommended that you have 8 to 10 grams of carbs per kilo of body weight per a day. No, within 24 hours, of doing a race. So yeah, that's within 24 hours. Obviously, it'd be good to kind of replenish some glycogen stores straight away. So within an hour, that would be good. Like have a banana, have a bit of pasta or rice or whatever, because you might be hungry anyway. But the main thing is to just kind of keep eating carbs throughout the 24 hours as well, because you would have depleted a lot, especially during like a half or full Ironman. So
yeah, absolutely.
You must do this within 10 minutes, it's not like that. And everybody is different as well, again. So depending on how much muscle you have or how big your glycogen stores are, will also depend on that as well. So I always think of kind of, for performance, you need 4 things. You need sleep, low stress levels, training, and nutrition. And with all 4 of those, you should be good to go. But to miss any one of them can have like quite an effect on your performance, if performance is your goal. But even weight loss or muscle gain, so any single one of those is really important. And nutrition is obviously, again, really important.
Experience on Zwift this week. I had Lionel Sanders was actually behind me, just appeared from nowhere, and he was drafting behind me, and I was thinking, wow, I've got Lionel drafting behind me. But then I realized he was just warming up, because all of a sudden he dropped 6 watts per kilo and just zoomed off ahead of me. But for that 30 seconds, I was kind of I took a photo.
Yeah,
as
you
well.
feel on top of the world, like
I really didn't really expect that he was actually drafting me. He was just warming up. But absolutely prolific, isn't it? Really, to be able to just kind of cycle at 6 watts per kilo effortlessly. But so you made a bold departure from your career in construction, and you've transitioned over to coaching. How does that feel?
Honestly, it's a huge relief. Like, everyone, like, people love to talk about like finding your passion and working and like not feeling like you're working. And construction was really fun while I was doing it, but I was not passionate about it. It's a very hard and unforgiving industry, and wasn't feeling like I was putting a lot more in than I was getting out of it. And so being back in the coaching world and getting to do it full time as a like full-fledged adult, and getting to work with kids and grown-ups and all sorts of abilities has been super rewarding. It's been an awesome 3 months doing it full time. And it's fantastic. It's really fun.
I know it's interesting, isn't it? Because everyone says find your passion and then try to work a career around that passion. It doesn't always work. Doesn't always work that way. In fact, it never works that way.
No.
I certainly, from my perspective, I never thought when I did university that I'd go into the career that I went into. And yeah, you're right. It can be quite challenging to try and find something that you've got passion about that you can actually also pay the mortgage with. So yeah, well done on making that switch. And
well, I'm not sure that I'm paying a mortgage with it yet. There's a lot of different positions. So like I was a summer kids swim coach. I'm a master's swim coach. I'm a triathlon coach. Like I wear a lot of different hats over the course of the day to try and pull my weight, pull my weight in the household.
But it's hugely rewarding.
Yeah,
in terms of
absolutely
doing the coaching you're doing.
Absolutely.
So should we just talk about that? So you're a triathlon and swim coach. What attracted you to coaching?
So when I was growing up and I was swimming, I found a lot of inspiration watching my coaches. Actually, like I would watch them on deck and like just they were so enthusiastic and so passionate and just so knowledgeable that I was like, well, I want to be like you. Like I want to learn from you. And that's what I did. Like as a teenager, like learned under these like well-respected coaches. Granted, just summer swimming, but just it was my first job. It was my first experience with working and helping other kids improve and learning what techniques there are to improve techniques was fascinating, and like how you say things and how you can apply different sorts of drills, like all of those things just were super, super intriguing. And so all I wanted to do was just be like my coaches growing up. And so that's what really drew me into it, and figured out it was really fun and really rewarding and always mentally challenging, right? Like there was always a puzzle to figure out. So
I guess it's nice when you see someone that's struggling with swimming or perhaps isn't as good at swimming as they want to be, and then all of a sudden something clicks because you've taught them something.
It's the best feeling. It's the best feeling when you watch that little click happen. You're like, yes, you got it.
So. I've been coaching my son on swimming because I figured that given I swim like 3 times a week for the last 4.5 years, I know a few things. So I've been teaching him, and he's a 10-year-old, and all of a sudden just small things have started to click, and he, the way you breathe, the way in which he tries to keep his buoyancy is just kind of and it is rewarding. It's really good to see. I mean, seeing him do 25 lengths in the pool or 30 lengths in the pool last weekend at the age of 10, and kind of enjoying it, and also asking me when can we go again is it does give you a little bit of a kind of a motivation to want to do it. So I can see that.
Yeah. It's not to say it's not, like, obviously there's a little bit of ego driving it too. Like I helped you, but ultimately it's all on the athlete and like how they reposition themselves and find their own internal drive. So that's awesome to hear about your son. 10 is such a fun age to coach. I really like that age group. They're just so funny.
Well, basically, I'm started in the triathlon 5 years ago. I started from scratch. I'm full-time worker. I'm father of the 2 boys, 1 girl, and I take care of the house. And I decided start my journey in the triathlon groups on the triathlon career because I was in so many health problems. I was overweight. I was over 250 pounds, and I have with several problems with the stress, and my life was in a real mess. So I'm start to get in triathlon. And that was like a miracle that changed my life. I'm always say this sport changed my life. And my last 5 years, I'm started working hard in this sport. And now I'm ready to race in the World Championship Utah in September 17 and 18. And isn't a beautiful journey, isn't a beautiful sport, and give me so much thing, discipline, help my health condition, and help me as a person as well.
Brilliant. I'm really impressed with your journey. We, when we've spoken before, you mentioned about, I mean, was it 5 years ago that you weren't into fitness at all, and as you said, you were overweight, and you found triathlon, which is very, very similar to the way I found triathlon and kind of my fitness journey. But what was the big motivation? Was it health that got you thinking about finding a sport? And was there a catalyst? Was there something that kind of made you decide to get into fitness?
Yeah, it was basically one particular situation with my family. I was so under too much stress. And I remember one night, everybody was together on the table, and I had a terrible reaction. And in that moment, I just realized, hey, I need to change my life. I need to do something better with my life, because everybody around me deserve one better person. And I'm start to check about maybe I can go for a run, maybe I can go to the gym. And I'm start to see, I always remember I saw an Ironman race, and I saw Craig Alexander crossing the finish line. And I say, hey, I can do that. That's exciting. And I'm start to first check websites, check everything related with the triathlon. And I realized it's not just a sport. It involves so many things, because you need to know about the sport itself, but you need to know about your nutrition. You need to know about your aerodynamics. You need to know about your mechanical for a bike. And I say, hey, this is interesting, because that can help me with my health situation, and also I can learn about 2 different topics, and it can be amazing. And that was like an awakening, was the one that changed my life. I can say 100 degree, just like that.
That's brilliant. Were you into running, cycling, or swimming before you found triathlon? I know you said you started pretty much from zero in terms of fitness, but was there anything that kind of attracted you to triathlon apart from watching one?
Yeah, when I saw these guys on TV, my first thought was they are impressive. How you can do all these 3 disciplines, and in that time. And then I started to research website, and I started to learn about all this sport, and requires so much discipline, requires so much constancy. You have to keep this motivation every day. And I think that was the key, have like a goal. You can set a goal, and then you get it, and then you say, okay, I can do this, and then I can do this. For example, in my case, my first goal was finish one sprint triathlon. Sounds funny, but that was my first goal. I say, wow, I don't know if I can do it. And I remember my first sprint triathlon, I finished almost in 2 hours. And I saw the guys crossing the finish line. I say, I can do this better. And I started working on it, and I started to check training plans, and I tried to set one schedule for my training, for my family, for my work. And then I was getting better. And then I finished first overall in my third sprint triathlon.
Yeah, and I think that's where I think the role of a coach is important in that accountability element. So you're accountable to someone's on your back, watching you.
Yeah.
But there's an element of getting that balance right as a coach that isn't so much on someone's back that they feel stifled in making intuitive decisions, and that's I think is a really important aspect of someone's training. If they're out on a run and they feel fatigued, it's more important for them to make a decision and judgment from themselves to reduce the load, reduce what they're doing, stop, don't do it, than to go, one minute, my coach is going to have a go at me if I don't. And I think getting that balance right is an essential quality of a coach, and not just in the sporting arena as well, across the board in terms of the workplace, etc. You know, that mental health element of kind of your coaching with your athletes is an important aspect, both from a perspective of kind of them maintaining you as their coach, because at some point there's going to be a frustrating moment where someone says, I've had enough of this.
Yeah.
Or the inability for them to make judgments themselves, which you want them to do, and understand whether they made the right decision or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone that I speak to from a coaching perspective, whether it's in general or someone who's having a call with me to discuss potential coaching, I tell them that I want them to be an independent athlete. You know, we have our check-ins. I will check in by message, whether it's WhatsApp or email, and every month we'll have a sit-down catch-up. And I'm happy for them to ping me a message and say, look, I'm away with work, or life has been a bit stressful. Can we change things around, whatever? But equally, you know, like you say, I want them to be intuitive. And if I've done my job correctly, someone will be able to get to the end of their time with me, whether it's after a few months or a year, or, you know, in some cases 3 or 4 years, and go, actually, you know what, either I can't afford coaching right now, or I can do this myself. And that's great, because I've done my job correctly, in that they can do the sessions, they can have those peaks and troughs in training, they can load up where they need to and not overload it too much. Well, obviously they need to overload to get the improvements, but not overload it so far that they cause problems, and they can have those drops as and where they need to. And it's really important, but different coaches have different coaching styles. And I have a few friends who are coached by other people, and it's exactly that. I hear some of the communications they have, and it's very interesting, because I would do things very differently. But just because I would do things differently doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's right or wrong with the right person. So it is a challenge, and that, I think, is probably the biggest part of coaching. I think it's more psychological than it is about writing the training plan, because anybody can write a training plan.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think that's the exciting thing about coaching, is that everyone is different. Everyone responds in a different way. You have to be the most flexible person in the relationship, because you've not only got to work out what makes that person tick, but you've also got to work out how, what motivates them, what it is. You're a psychologist as well as a coach. And that psychology element of coaching is really important. If you have, you can just send a training plan over and just go and hope it works, but that's not what you do. That's not how you get the best out of the athletes. It's about that kind of that relationship, that mutual respect and an ability to judge what is right for that person. There's a theme on the podcast about this kind of making sure you understand what the why is. That's the fundamental point. The same thing with nutrition, I guess. I mean, is that something that you find with your clients you have to address at an early stage around why are they coming to me? Why do they need, what is their why, basically?
Yeah, so when I have someone come and see me, we have several sessions, or we have quite a nice introductory period where I find out what they want, why they want it, and how they want to get there. And I think with that, it helps me understand them, but it also helps them understand themselves as well. It's all well and good somebody saying, I want to lose this amount of weight, or I want my digestion to get better. It's like, okay, why? How is that affecting you? When they understand those driving factors, I understand the driving factors. So it helps me tailor a program to them, but it also helps them realize their goals. And there's something about saying it out loud that can reinforce it into your head. And people think, oh yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do the other. But actually saying it cements it, and they're like, no, I am going to do that. And then having that understanding I think, you know, the old saying, like, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day, teach a man how to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. I think my goal is not to work with people long term. I run 12-week program, 6 to 12-week programs, and teach people why it's not a long-term thing for me. I don't think I can be if people want me. But my goal is to give people the tools to understand their goals and to understand how to get there. So when I'm talking through a protocol, a plan, I'll explain why I'm doing it, and I'll send them the information, I'll send them the research and say, you don't have to read it, but it's there if you want it, if you're interested. So then when they, like, a year down the line, 2 years down the line, they're like, oh, actually, I did see her and she said this and it was really helpful. This worked and this is why it worked. So when someone comes up to them and says, oh, why are you eating fat? Fat makes you fat. They'll be like, actually, no. Fat is an essential part of my body and I can't function without it. My hormones won't exist. My cells won't exist. And I literally cannot function without it. Your joint's aching because you're not eating fat. And then they can walk away and they, actually, I am confident in my knowledge. I'm confident with how this works. And I'm confident eating my full fat yogurt and ice cream and know what part it's playing in their health, and then turn around and say, okay, my joints are hurting. Maybe I'm having too much of something else. And it's that understanding, I think, as you said, it's that control and that power of your own health. And I think giving people that back, as opposed to just saying there's a pill, is something that's so important, because it gives you that responsibility and yeah, ultimately that control and power to say, well, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I guess in the same way as anyone that's in coaching, you have an element of being a psychologist and have to be a psychologist. You have to understand the human psyche and how people tick, otherwise you wouldn't get the best out of them. And the other point you made around kind of making yourself redundant is, if you're a good coach, if you're a good nutritionist, you're teaching people to actually change their lifestyle. At some point, they need to, go fly for themselves. It's not. So it's really, it's a really interesting point. It's the same thing with the coaching model, isn't it? You as a coach, you'd want to make sure that there's the element of coachability, so their ability to receive information, take it on board, and do what they're being told, or understand why they're doing it, and therefore doing what they're being told, and the element of then being coached to an extent that they've learned so much that they can go away and just not need to have to be coached anymore.
Every coach's dream, I think. Well, that's what I think. That is the ultimate end goal. Obviously, if you are carrying on working, you want to keep on progressing. But ultimately, like in a school, like in university, teachers don't want you there to always learn. They want you to kind of get to the end of the year, just go be free. And I think that's like anybody in any form of like education, coaching, personal development. That's you would be a very bad educator if you didn't want that for your athletes, students, whatever.
Your why is you want to help people, and have a deep rooted kind of important objective of wanting to help people that makes you feel good. Similar for me. My background in law, and the reason why I wanted to become a barrister was because I wanted to help people. That then also transfers to the sporting context of kind of wanting to help people with lifestyle and changing their lifestyle. And what it's not going to help it. You have to. The whole aspect I love about coaching, about what coaching represents in the wider sense, is people will make mistakes. People may not follow instructions, and they may go off and do something completely different. But if they can understand what they've done wrong or why it's not worked, and then be able to feed that back, that must be something that is an important aspect of that loop of kind of you as a nutritionist understanding, why that person hasn't followed what you've asked them to follow, or why they're not doing what they're doing.
Well, my inbox is full of those all the time. So it is, and I think that's an important thing that I'll always explain to clients when they start. They're like, okay, it is a personalized process. We're not going to get it right first time, and that's okay. You can't break your body. So that trial and error, finding what works, finding what's maybe deficient and stuff. It is a process, and as you know, with training, probably with yourself and your athletes, it's never going to work first time. If you try a new training method, it might work amazingly for some and not for others.
Yeah.
So it is a constant, and I'll email with my clients, and we catch up once a month, and we just felt good, what's felt bad. I get them to keep like a food diary for like a random 3 days. And we'll keep feeding back. We'll look at the mood. We'll look at every aspect of their life, their energy. And if something's not working, we'll change it. And it's not a failure of the plan. It's not a failure on their part or my part. It's just something that's not worked. And I think that's getting into that attitude, that mindset is a really important thing. But I try and establish really early so they don't turn around and say, this isn't working, Kate. It's not going well. They're like, okay, right, let's look at why. And it's going back to that why again. And it's so important. Because then as it goes through the programs, you see them saying, right, Kate, this isn't working. So I tried this and it is working. And when I read those sorts of emails, I'm like, oh.